For nearly 6 centuries, a single empire fought almost continuously. It confronted kingdoms, sultanates, republics, crusading armies, internal rebellions, and rising European powers. It gained territories, lost territories, and redrew its borders countless times. Its army marched from the Balkans to the deserts of Arabia, and while all of this was happening, it accomplished something very few states in history ever managed. Despite so much warfare, it did not collapse financially, because the Ottoman Empire knew not only how to fight wars, but how to finance them. More than that, it turned this into a system that could be sustained for centuries. Existing from roughly 1299 to 1922, the Ottoman Empire lasted far longer than many people assume, longer than Rome, longer than Britain. But the most interesting part is not its longevity. The real question is this: how did an empire that was almost constantly at war remain standing under financial pressure? In Western narratives, the collapse of empires is often explained by defeats on the battlefield, yet what truly ruins states is rarely military loss. It is flawed budgets, poor logistics, and unsustainable spending. The Ottomans understood this very early. Instead of relying on salaried armies and heavy treasury burdens like Europe's kingdoms, they built a far more flexible and intelligently designed structure, a structure in which war was often not an expense, but a source of income. The Ottomans emerged as a small frontier principality in northwestern Anatolia. As the Byzantine Empire unraveled and Mongol pressure receded, Osman Bey and his followers found themselves in exactly the right place. Their early gains were not merely military successes. Each conquest was also an economic gain, because new territory meant produce, taxation, population, and revenue. For this reason, warfare in the Ottoman system was part of the financial structure from the very beginning. By the mid-14th century, with the capture of Bursa and the crossing into Europe, the Ottomans were no longer a frontier power. They had become an empire controlling the trade routes between Europe and Asia. In the medieval world, this meant holding the heart of global commerce. From silk to spices, from carpets to metals, everything passed through these lands, and everything that passed was taxed. But strong revenue alone was not enough. What truly made the difference was how the system was designed. The Ottomans eliminated the most expensive element of an army: regular salaries. The foundation of this was the timar system. Instead of paying soldiers money, the state granted them the right to collect taxes from a specific region. These soldiers, known as sipahis, did not receive wages. They financed their horses, weapons, and equipment from their own income. In return, they were required to be ready whenever a campaign was called. This was one of the most effective financial solutions in history. The burden on the treasury decreased, soldiers had a direct interest in maintaining local stability, and peasants lived within a predictable structure. In Europe, the loyalty of mercenaries depended on pay. When the money ran out, the army dissolved. In the Ottoman system, however, the structure continued to function even in times of peace. But this was not the only pillar. The second major institution was the Janissary Corps. The Janissaries were professional infantry soldiers. They were absolutely loyal to the state, and financially, they were remarkably efficient. The devshirme system was ethically harsh, and this should not be denied. But economically, it achieved something critical. The state did not directly bear the full lifetime cost of raising soldiers from childhood. That burden was spread across the social structure of conquered territories. The timar system made the cavalry inexpensive. The Janissary system made the infantry inexpensive. Together, they created a highly effective but low-cost military structure. More importantly, every conquest strengthened the financing of the next campaign. The Ottomans often returned from war not poorer, but wealthier. The Straits, the Mediterranean, the Red Sea, and the caravan routes were under Ottoman control. In addition, the state maintained monopolies. Essential goods such as salt, coffee, and tobacco were direct sources of state revenue, a logic similar to today's strategic energy companies. There were also regions that were not governed directly, but paid a tribute. This was cheaper and provided steady income. The most striking point is this: for centuries, the Ottoman Empire lived without borrowing. There was no national debt spiral, no pressure from foreign creditors, until global conditions changed. When industrialization, maritime trade, and modern armies reshaped the world, the old system began to fail. The timar system weakened, the Janissaries resisted reform, military costs increased, and the empire turned to what it had avoided for so long: external debt. High-interest loans taken in the 19th century ended financial independence. In 1881, the empire's finances were placed under foreign control. In other words, the Ottoman Empire was not defeated on the battlefield, but on the balance sheet. This story still feels familiar today, because the financial logic of empires does not change. Wars do not destroy states. Numbers do. The Ottoman Empire survived as long as war generated revenue. When it no longer did, collapse followed. History does not repeat itself, but if you fail to understand it, its consequences are inevitable.